Welcome back to Chasing Sparks with Tasha, the podcast where we stop trying to live someone else's version of success and start paying attention to the small, powerful moments that remind us we're already more than enough. Let's talk about something that's been living rent-free in my head and probably yours too. This constant pressure to do more, be more, achieve more. The feeling that no matter what you check off your list, it never quite feels like you've arrived, like you could always be doing better, faster, more impressively. And the thing is, it doesn't always shout at us. Sometimes it's just background noise, static, a hum of quiet dissatisfaction that buzzes under even our proudest moments. You finally finish a big project, and your brain says, "Okay, now what?" You take a day off to rest, and guilt creeps in like you just committed a felony. And where does that come from? Why is the idea of being enough so foreign to so many of us? Let's go back for a minute. Gen Xers, we were raised on independence, grit, and a whole lot of figure it out. We came home to empty houses after school. We were told not to cry, not to complain, and definitely not to stop trying. Productivity wasn't just encouraged, it was expected. You are praised when you push through, even if it hurt. And that gets internalized, deep. Millennials, you were raised with a whole different kind of pressure to do it all and make it look good. You were encouraged to dream big, get degrees, change the world, but also expected to keep a perfectly filtered highlight reel going. Burnout wasn't a red flag, it was practically a rite of passage. Gen Z, you're growing up with all of this pressure, plus social media in your pocket 24/7. You see everyone's best moments constantly, and no one's behind the scenes breakdowns. And then you wonder why you feel behind. You're just drowning in unrealistic comparisons. And it's not just generational, it's cultural. We live in a society that measures value by output. If you're not producing, you're slacking. If you're not building your brand, climbing a ladder, or reaching some shiny milestone, you're wasting your potential. We've been sold the lie that worth must be earned, that being busy means you're important, that your hustle is your identity. And the wild part, even when we know it's unhealthy, we still buy into it. I've done it. I've had seasons of my life where I hit every goal on paper and still went to bed feeling like I was behind, like I should have squeezed in one more email, one more task, one more anything to feel like I was enough. And on the flip side, I've had slower seasons, seasons where I was prioritizing rest, healing, family, and somehow I still felt guilty, like slowing down made me less valuable. That's what the system does. It makes us believe our humanity is a liability, that unless we're constantly performing, we're somehow failing. But here's the truth. Your worth is not something you have to prove. You're not a project. You're not a checklist. You're not an algorithm. You're a human being, and that should be enough. Let's get into the psychology for a minute. What we're talking about here is conditional self-worth. That's the belief that your value is tied to how well you perform, how much you achieve, or how useful you are to others. It sounds extreme, but most of us live this out daily without realizing it. We don't rest because we're afraid rest looks like weakness. We don't slow down because we've been conditioned to believe that hustle equals purpose. We don't celebrate our small wins because they don't feel big enough to matter. But here's what matters. You do, without the overachievement. without the performance. So, how do we change this? How do we shift the narrative, not just intellectually, but emotionally? First, we name it. We call it what it is. When you hear that inner voice whispering, you should be doing more, pause. Ask it, who told you that? Where did you learn that enough is something always just out of reach? Second, we define enough for ourselves, not based on comparison, but on connection. Enough might be a day where you made someone smile, a week where you prioritized your mental health, a year where you learned to say no. These things matter deeply, even if they don't fit into society's highlight reel. Third, we practice daily. You're not going to flip a switch and wake up believing you're enough, but you can build that muscle. You can start noticing the moments where you shrink, where you strive, where you chase instead of choose, and gently, intentionally shift course. Maybe you replace "I should be doing more" with "I did what I could today." Maybe you stop apologizing for needing rest. Maybe you start celebrating your boundaries instead of feeling guilty for setting them. And let's talk about boundaries for a second, because those of us in helping professions, leadership roles, or caregiving positions often carry the belief that we're only valuable when we're giving. But boundaries aren't barriers. They're clarity, they're protection. They're a declaration that you matter too. You don't have to prove your worth through exhaustion. You don't have to be everything to everyone. You're allowed to prioritize peace. Let's also normalize the idea that ambition and rest can coexist, that wanting a fulfilling life doesn't mean it has to be packed to the brim, that you can chase meaningful goals and take naps. You can be purpose-driven and have quiet seasons. Enough doesn't mean you've stopped growing. It means you're growing in alignment with what actually matters. If you're a parent, a partner, a leader, or just someone trying to stay upright in this wild world, give yourself the same grace you give everyone else. You're not here to impress strangers on the internet. You're here to live a life that feels true to you, a life that includes joy, rest, connection, reflection, and yes, sometimes slow days with not much to show for them but a full heart and a calm mind. That is more than enough. So if you're in a season where everything feels like a race, I'm asking you to slow down. If you've been measuring your worth by your to-do list, I'm asking you to tear up the list, not just for today. If you're waiting to feel like you're enough before you rest, celebrate, or even just breathe, don't wait. You already are. That's it for today's episode. If this resonated with you, I'd love it if you left a comment, shared this with someone who needs it, or subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And as always, keep chasing those sparks. They're out there. You just have to look for them. See you next time.